Start. Okay, can you see the Qualtrics TextIQ screen?
Yes, I can. And feel free to go ahead and start your presentation whenever you want.
Cool. I should have, let me close out of Teams. Okay, hi everybody, thanks for joining. I saw some familiar faces joining the room, which is good. We're all friends here. Go easy on me today. I'm trying to memorize all this Qualtrics TextIQ stuff. There is a lot of information, so we're going to go over as much as we can, and then I'm going to show you the very handy Qualtrics help library where you can research some of this further and get even more answers. But basically today we're going to go over a really cool feature in Qualtrics called Qualtrics TextIQ, which is a very smart text analysis tool that is integrated into the Qualtrics survey software, and it helps you do some really sophisticated analysis of free text entry. So we're going to use our words today to kind of dig into Qualtrics survey responses. Just as a brief overview, if you haven't used Qualtrics before, we've done a bunch of sessions on this, but just in case you are new to the tool, you can access it at weillcornell.qualtrics.com. It is an industry-leading survey tool. It's available at no additional cost to all Weill Cornell Medicine faculty, staff, and students. You just go to that URL, type in your seaweed and password, and you'll see the Qualtrics dashboard. It is powerful yet easy to use, and you can create, launch, and manage surveys with it. It allows for web-based data collection, which means that anytime you want to access your surveys, to build them, launch them, or look at the data collected, you're gonna go to this URL. Okay, so there are a couple ways to find out what people are thinking. You could be a psychic and have a crystal ball, or you can ask people to answer questions anonymously on the internet. These are two really good ways to dig into the deep, dark thought patterns of the users to help you figure out how to manage your services in your business. So today we're going to look into how to do the latter. How are we going to find out what people are thinking based on what they type into their computer when no one is watching them? Let the people write. Free text answers and surveys are how you learn the good stuff. I think in a lot of surveys, we build them with multiple choice questions, kind of anticipating what we think they'll answer and what we want to hear, because that's an easy way to categorize answers. But free text is a way to dig into stuff that we maybe never saw coming. And luckily, this Qualtrics TextIQ helps us analyze those answers on the back end. So the way you collect these responses is the text entry question type. And I'm going to show you that. We're going to get into a survey in a second. But when you are building a survey, there's a little thing on the right that lets you choose what kind of question is going to be. And the text entry type lets you just type a question and then have this blank essay box below, which is this beautiful canvas for getting people to tell you their opinions. Qualtrics TextIQ is, as I mentioned, the text analysis tool. It lets you assign topics to the feedback you receive so that you can categorize all of the answers you get and kind of group them together. You can perform sentiment analysis, which is a cool thing that measures if the response is positive, negative, neutral, or mixed. And we're going to dig into that later, but it's cool. And then you can pull out results with these dynamic widgets that are just built in that kind of help you visualize the answers you get. You find TextIQ, and again, I'm going to show you all of this in a minute, but in your Qualtrics dashboard, there's a data and analysis tab. You click that, and then you click text, and then it's going to enter you into this TextIQ portal. Okay, without further ado, we're going to start the survey I created a couple years ago as an example about a mythical land called Sunny's Ice Cream Parlor and Garden. And the background for this made up survey is that this guy, Sunny, has owned his ice cream parlor for like 50 years and he thinks it's going great, you know, just based on when he walks around the parking lot and talks to people. But he gets this slick new intern in who says, Sunny, haven't you ever done a survey about customer experience? Like, how are you going to know if people are happy or not? And so lo and behold, he launches the survey and finds out things that he, you know, like never saw coming, because he lets people do free text analysis or free text entry. Okay, let's take the survey so that you can see the questions that I've set up, and then you can have a better understanding of the text analysis when we get to that. So I'm going to stop this share, and then we're going to go into the survey itself, which is in another menu. Okay, can you all see a screen with ice cream on it? Vanessa, can you just tell me, do you see the ice cream?
I can definitely see it.
Great, everyone's happy. It's August, it's summertime. Let's take the survey. Okay, first we're asking, this is just one of these multiple choice questions. Sunny wants to know, what's your preferred time of day to enjoy ice cream? I like it in the evening as a treat. What flavors of ice cream do you order most frequently? Definitely mint chocolate chip. It's the best. Okay, and here we get into the text entry. Describe your overall experience with ordering ice cream at Sunny's. I'm gonna say it's usually pretty great, but I don't know who that new guy is. He has a attitude. Okay. Sunny didn't know about this new guy until he asked the question. Describe the last time you enjoyed a cone in Sunny's ice cream garden. How was it? Oh man, I love the garden. The garden at Sunny's is one of my fave places on earth. How do you get your roses so perfect? They smell so good. I love the garden. Okay. And finally, what would you do to change or improve Sunny's ice cream parlor? Oh man, and this is a tough one because overall it's really great. The ordering is fine except for that guy. I like the garden. There, you know what? There is one thing though. I'm kind of getting into this zero waste thing, and Sunny still uses styrofoam cups, which is awful. So I'm gonna say, Sunny, get with the program and buy some reusable or compostable dishes, cups, whatever you call them. Styrofoam is bad for the planet. Everything else is good. You're right. Okay. So there's the answer. Awesome. And that's the survey. It was a quick 5-minute survey, but we asked some answers because they were open-ended that really let us, kind of uncover some hidden opinions. Okay, I'm going to stop share, and then we're going to go into Qualtrics and look at some of the data and analyze the text. So again, I'm stopping share, and I'm going to go into a new Safari window. All right. Vanessa, can you see this Qualtrics screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. I'm going to actually go back a step to show you how I got here. So I went into projects, which is going to be a list of all the surveys you've ever made. And you can just search. This one I named Ice Cream, You Scream, like Ice Cream, You Scream, We All Scream for Ice Cream. And I'm going to click on the survey. And then this is just showing me the survey itself. And then to get to the text analysis, I click over to data and analysis. And then I click on text. Okay, cool. And then it's showing me a view of some of all the text that came in. I will give you a warning. If you have never applied the TextIQ tool to a survey you've done, the first time you do it, it's going to pull a window up that says something like, this is the first time you've used TextIQ. It may take less than 30 minutes or up to 48 hours to analyze all your answers. This one, the first time I did it, it took all of 10 minutes to kind of pull all the data in. But just a word of warning that if you are trying to do this to a survey where you've got a ton of responses and you're on a deadline, it can take up to 48 hours. I'm not sure how big the data set has to be for it to take that long, but just give yourself enough time to go in that first time. Okay, so let's kind of look at this window a little bit and get familiar. Up here in the upper left, the field lets me select which text response I'm analyzing. So you can see here are the 3 text ones I've got, and we're looking right now at describe the last time you enjoyed a cone in Sunny's garden, but I could also look at questions 3 or 5. The menu lets me select the different topics that I've already assigned, so you can view the responses that are tagged with that topic. You can also view responses that are not tagged, which means maybe there wasn't a topic that applied, or you haven't yet figured out what topic best summarizes them. You can also see below, so here are the topics I've created so far, and we're going to get to how to create topics in a second. But one cool thing you can do is create parent and child topics. So right now I have a parent topic called kids, and I have some that are kid-friendly negative and some that are kid-friendly positive, which just means that in some of the comments to this survey, some people mentioned, I love taking my kids here, and some people mentioned there are too many kids here. So just a way to group some of your answers so that they all kind of apply to children, but each one has a different sentiment. We've also got, I'm going to go into edit mode in a second, but what you're seeing right now, and I'm going to talk about these in a little bit, are sentiment widgets, which are a cool way to visualize the sentiments in your responses. And the sentiments are just kind of the negative or positive sentiment to an answer based on the language in mostly the text response and sort of also the text question. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. But I want to get into how to edit your responses. So to do that, I'm going to slide over and click on this blue pencil. Does everyone see that? You're going to click that. And then once you see this blue check mark, then you can go ahead and start editing. And you can kind of get in and edit all sorts of things in your responses. One of the things you can play with is this embedded data, which is something that's going to show up in all your responses, and it just lets you look at any of these survey metadata fields. You can see if you want to really drill down into start date, end date, IP address, duration, recorded date, location, latitude or longitude if you're interested in geography. For these, I just pulled up duration in seconds. I'm kind of curious about how long it took people to take the survey, and also the date the survey was recorded. This also has, so these fields are, this is the topic already assigned to this response, and the blue check mark is how I would add an existing topic. So let's actually go ahead and add a topic manually. There's a couple different ways to add topics. You can either click the blue button to add it manually, or up here, you can search your responses and kind of apply these queries that's gonna read through all the response data and pull out keywords and kind of assign topics based on those words. So let's go ahead and add a topic manually. And I'm gonna start, actually, I was going through this earlier and I noticed there are a fair amount of responses that talk about the garden. So what I'm gonna do is click the blue button, type garden, and then just hit enter. And then we've added the topic garden. So what you can see here, when I've made this edit, a yellow banner has appeared that says the stage changes have not been applied. Click to review your changes. So this is just showing me that I've manually added the topic of garden to this one response. Qualtrics does this because changing or applying the changes takes a little bit of time. And if you stage them first, you can get in and do all your editing before you actually apply them. It just kind of saves time. So let's go through and take a look at more of these responses. And actually, since we're already talking about garden, let's play with doing a topic assignment based on query. And what I'm going to do is I want to look for any response that mentions garden and also maybe mentions the roses and the plants. I'm also going to hover over here. If you click this little I button next to the search bar, it's going to pull up all of the codes you can use to build these complicated queries. I'm not even going to attempt to go through this because there's a lot of different ways to do this. But as you can see, you can look for one word, you can look for 2 words, you can look for both formal and dress. You can also do like either or. Exact operators is kind of interesting, or actually near operators is a cool thing. It lets you, here, this broaden results thing, it lets you look for something like, if you were looking for a response about, for example, slow internet, but you had a response that maybe mentioned the word internet and then slow dining, you wouldn't want to do a search for both slow and internet because it would probably tag that response. What you want is someone specifically mentioning slow internet. So you can type something like, the example here is pretty dressed, but you would do in quotation marks, slow internet, and then do, I don't know what that wavy line is called, but wavy line number. And you're basically telling it, I want to know all of the times that the words slow and internet appeared in a response within 2 words of each other. And you can change that number. So if you want to say, I want it within 1 word of each other, within 5 words of each other, you can do that too. So basically, this little I hint bubble is going to teach you how to build these complicated queries. But let's just do, for the sake of simplicity, we're going to do a really basic search for any response that has the words garden and roses and plants. I'm going to hit return. Oh, none? Okay, how about 4? There we go. Now we've got a couple. And I can see, so cool, the garden at Sunny's is one of my favorite places on earth. How do you get your roses so perfect? They smell so good. I love the garden. That's the response I just added. This is great. We sat in the garden and smelled the roses. That sounds nice. Delightful. The plants are gorgeous. It's so peaceful. It's one of my favorite summer rituals. We love the garden. It's safe. The plants are pretty. I let my kids run around and play with other kids so I can have a conversation with another mom and not worry. The garden is like overwhelmingly positive. So what I'm going to do now is create a topic based on this query. And I'm going to call this, actually, I'm going to call this garden too. Oh, names already exist. Let's call it garden positive. Add topic. Okay. So this means that now when anyone takes the survey for the first time, if their response to this question includes the words garden and roses or plants, the response for that question is automatically going to be tagged with that new topic. All right, I'm going to go ahead and review my changes and apply them. And while that loads, I'll see if there's any questions that have come in. So again, here are the topics I've added. I've added garden positive, and then I added garden.
Hey, Bridget, there was one question while you're waiting for it to load. Sue asked, would you be able to analyze across surveys that are the same across sessions? For example, a satisfaction survey after a weekly webinar.
Okay, so you've taken, so it's a survey for a weekly webinar and you're getting, are you using the same survey for each, like are you using the same survey link for each webinar?
I'll ask Sue to confirm in the chat, but based on her question, it looks like yes.
Okay, then yeah, because all of your answers are going to be coming into the same place. I think in that case, you would just want to kind of separate it out by date. And I'll be honest, if I were to do that live, I would flub around and probably mess it up. But Sue, I can kind of work on that after the session, and we can figure out how in the reports you can look at data analysis for the same survey that's taken at different dates and time.
Oh, she did clarify. She said same questions, different links. So it sounds like it might be different surveys, but she says, great, I can add you to the surveys if that helps so you can work with her afterwards.
Oh, that could be helpful. And there's something you can do that I haven't gotten to play around with enough, but you can also, once you create topics for one survey, you can, I think you can import them to a different survey. So you could basically like give one survey on a webinar, assign topics, and then when you go in to analyze the new survey you've created for a different webinar, you can import those topics you already created. And again, I cannot show you how to do it yet. I was just reading through the help library and it is an option, but that's something we can work on together. I'm gonna go ahead and click this check mark that's going to let me apply the changes. And again, when the window pops up, you can either close out to keep editing, discard your changes, or go ahead and apply the changes, and that's what we're gonna do. So while the changes are applied, the floor is open. Are there any other questions?
I don't see any as of yet. So if you want to keep going,
Okay,
do your
sounds good.
thing.
We'll see how long this takes. When I was practicing, sometimes it went really quickly and sometimes it didn't. But anyway, this is real time how long it takes to apply your changes. So just so you know.
But I noticed that when you were doing the text analysis, like pulling up the data as it populated, there were numbers next to each one. What does that mean exactly?
Okay, so we're going to get to that, and I can start talking about it.
Perfect.
That is sentiment analysis. So Qualtrics will assign a positive, negative, neutral, or mixed sentiment to text responses as soon as it's loaded into TextIQ. The sentiment is based on the language of the response, and sometimes the question text itself, and then also edits you make to sentiment analysis. Each sentiment comes with a polarization number and a numeric score. So the numeric score is kind of just saying like where on a scale of, I think it's -10 to +10, how positive it seems. And polarity ranks kind of how emotional the response is. So something where if someone was like, you guys are the worst, I'm never coming back, that would get a high polarity score. And likewise, if it was like, I love you, this is my favorite place to be ever, that would also be ranked high positive and also have a high polarity. And something to note also, for most text analysis questions, the text of the question itself is not relevant. So if you asked something like, why did you give us this score? That's a pretty neutral question. But occasionally the framing of the question implies a sentiment to the answer. And in that case, TextIQ takes the question into account when it assigns a score. So for example, if you said something like, what do you love about our company? Unless that answer is explicitly negative, if someone were to say nothing, this place is the worst, the sentiment for that response is probably positive because of the way you framed the question.
That's really interesting, actually.
It's really interesting, yeah. And I'll kind of keep talking because this is still loading. We'll go into an example after. You get different, each response gets a couple different scores. It gets an overall sentiment score, which is the sentiment score for the general response. And then you also get a topic sentiment, which is the sentiment score for a particular topic. So something like my example that I pulled up earlier that was kids negative, the score for that is probably going to be more on the negative side. But then some of the topics we created for garden, as you could see, those answers were largely positive. So their score for that topic is probably going to be pretty positive. And we're going to look at that in just a second.
You want to try refreshing? Do you think that'll?
I did that earlier and it doesn't really do it, but yeah, it bumped us back up to 50, but it's still working on it. But let me see if I close that. I wonder if we can still get back in. Yeah, I think we'll just have to be a little bit patient. I'm going to get into widgets in just a moment. Actually, but in the meantime, I think I can switch tabs to show you guys. Can you see now this thing that says Qualtrics at the top and topics in TextIQ?
Yep.
Okay, so this I got to oh good, this is done. So in your Qualtrics screen, if you click on help right here, it takes you to a really robust Qualtrics support site. And if you have questions about TextIQ, you're just gonna type TextIQ into the menu and then you've got, here's the entire help library. So I'll just show you that because I'm sure if you play around with TextIQ, you'll be coming back to this eventually. But it looks like we're good. Okay, cool, the changes are applied. So as you saw, it took about 3 to 5 minutes to apply changes, so just keep that in mind. I'm gonna close out of that and hopefully we can get back in. Oh, this is cool too. I wanted you guys to see this. When I took the survey with you guys a moment ago, the responses to surveys do not get loaded into Qualtrics automatically because that is another thing that takes time to be added. So if you click on one new response, it's going to tell you a new response has been recorded. Do you want to add it to text tools? I'm not going to add it now because it's going to take a while also. So we'll say not now. And you can come back and add that response at any time. But since we're on the topic of sentiment, let's go over some of these sentiment widgets that are kind of just built into the Qualtrics dashboard, and they're kind of fun. So this is showing me, this is the bubble widget. It's just one way to visualize the sentiment breakdown for each text topic for a given response. Each bubble represents a topic. Its name is in the center. And if I hover over it, I can get a breakdown of all of the comments. So we've got 3 comments with the topic. The average sentiment is 3.3, which is, I guess, pretty positive. And then it's ranking me the number of responses that are positive, 2, and then we've got 1 negative response, and then no neutral and no mixed. And then there's also a cool thing you can do, because kids is the parent topic. If I click on this, then it gives me a breakdown of the child topics, kid-friendly positive and kid-friendly negative. The color around the rim indicates the sentiments for those responses. Let me go back to topics. The color around the rim indicates the sentiments for those responses. So you can see for this kids, most of it was negative, but we've got a little bit of positive in there. Garden, interestingly, shows negative, which I do not think is accurate. So we're actually going to go in and edit the sentiments in just a second, which you can do. And then this is also sorted on the X and Y axis. The y-axis indicates the median sentiment for the topic. So for example, the garden positive sentiment is largely higher than the other. So that's why it's a little bit higher on the y-axis. And then the bigger, what is it? The size of the bubble corresponds to the number of responses tagged with that topic. So you can see I've got 4 comments tagged with the seating topic. So that's the largest bubble, and I only have 1 response tagged with garden, so that's smaller. The topic change is interesting too. So you need at least 2 days of survey data for this to apply. Once you've got 2 days of data, it will initially just compare 2 days. After you have 2 weeks, you're going to get a week-by-week comparison. And then after you have a couple of months, you're going to get a month-by-month comparison. This survey I actually created in 2017, which is like ancient history. So we're seeing a breakdown of change from the answers that were recorded then and now. So as you can see, some of these, this is just the topics that are being added. So some of these that I've added in the last couple of days, like garden, kid-friendly negative, garden positive, kids, relax. I've had more responses come in and be tagged with that comment. So we've got this blue dot moving to the right indicating that those topics are increasing. And then kid-friendly positive and more seating are shown that they're shrinking. I think just because they haven't been added to in the last couple of days. And then you've also got something similar with sentiment change, where if we've had a couple more kid-friendly negative comments come in, you can see this is kind of moving to the right. And then some of these other topics, relax, kids, garden positive, we're not having as many of those. So we've got an indication that they're moving in the negative direction. And then you've got the word cloud, which is cool. As words become more central, darker, and bigger, that's because they're appearing more commonly in the responses. The frequency is determined by the number of responses the word appears in and not the number of times the word itself is typed. So you could type the word garden 10 times in one response and it wouldn't change it. But if there were multiple responses that mention the word garden, that's what would make this word be large. Let's go in and I want to show you how to edit sentiment type. So again, we're going to go in and click this blue pencil. And let's find a good one to change. Actually, this is kind of interesting because, so the question was, describe the last time you enjoyed it. And someone just wrote yesterday. They were in a hurry, they took this quickly. But it has assigned a -1 score to the answer, when really I think this is a pretty neutral sentiment and I don't want it to mess up my data. So I'm going to click this little pencil And I can just drag the sentiment indicator into a more neutral territory. And it's showing me this warning that the sentiment and the score don't match. That's okay, ignore that. That's actually what I want to do. So let's drag this to neutral, click out. This would be the time if I wanted to apply the change that I would click the X, but again, I don't want to hold you guys up with more delay. Just know that after you change a sentiment score and you click the X, it will apply after you click that blue and apply your changes. Cool. Let's go into, just to do a couple more examples, I'm going to go into the answers for another question. So I want to look now at question 5. What would you do to change or improve Sunny's Ice Cream Parlor? And this is kind of, I think most of the surveys we ask, right, we're asking for things to do to change or improve. And you can see we've got a whole new widget showing us the answers that have come in and the topics assigned. So we've done some text analysis on the responses that have come in. This is something I kind of already went in and looked at, where a lot of the responses asked for more product variety. They wanted more flavors. They wanted more payment options. They wanted improved dishes. And let's go ahead and go in just as an exercise and look at some of those text responses and maybe apply some new topics. So again, I'm going to click this blue pencil. Ooh, we have some polarity questions or responses, I mean. So one person wants to ban the kids. I actually already have a topic created that I can apply to this, I think, which is I was expecting kid negative to topic. Actually, I'm glad this happened. So we had the topic of kids created for question number 4, the one about the garden, but I haven't yet created it for this one. So I can actually do a whole new topic creation for question number 5. And let me see actually if kids come up in any of these. Just a couple. Okay, so we've got one saying they want a no kid zone. I don't know if that's going to happen because this is a family-friendly restaurant. And then this person is asking, can you get kitty sizes? And maybe one of those unicorn flavors that I've been reading so much about. I don't care about it, but my kids are brainwashed. Even if it just had multicolors, that would be cool. I could convince them it's a unicorn. Okay, awesome. One thing that this text response did is called lemmatization, where it is going to search for words based on the root word in the text provided. So you can, have a bunch of varieties of this word like kitty sizes, kids, kid, and it's going to pull up all variations of that, which is really helpful. It means that you don't have to do these complicated results like kids and kid and kitty. That you don't have to mess with. You just have to type one word like this, and the search results are going to pull up anything that's kind of similar. It will also do a little bit of a spell check for you. So if people have provided text responses that have kind of like a slight misspelling of the word kid, that's probably also going to be picked up when you do a search. So let's add another topic, and we're just going to call it kid issues, either liking them or wanting them to have different flavors. Add topic. Okay. And again, let's make sure this is going to apply. Yeah, this is this new topic where anytime the word kids is detected in a text response in any new survey, it's going to add kid issues. It's going to assign that as a topic. So that is something that would be applied when I click that blue check mark. Nice. I kind of want to see, all responses really. How do I get to that? Showing all 14. So I just went over here, clicked on all comments, and now I've got all 14 responses to this question. And let's look at more of these. I would install some umbrellas on the picnic tables. It gets pretty sunny at Sunny's. That's a good one. I'm just going to manually add umbrella. Good to know. So we've got that coming up. No suggestions, no suggestions. This one back in 2017 asked for faster service and more flavors. I love Sunny's. So you can see we've got this positive response helps feed the +6 score for the sentiment. And then I've also gone ahead and applied the topics of more product variety and more flavors. Ooh, ever heard of a shake gets some milkshakes? Yikes. They want more products and they also are kind of negative about it. This is a hard one, but I wonder if you could get different cups. I always feel guilty throwing away that styrofoam and never biodegrades. We have to do our part. Totally improved dishes all over it. This is something a lot of people have brought up. All right, so I hope this kind of just gives you a feel for how to get in and look at the responses, make some edits to sentiment, add topics. I'm going to go ahead and X out of here. I'm actually not going to hit the check mark because that's going to prevent me from looking at something else I want to look at, which is in the data. Okay, so this is kind of a different view of it. We were in the text tab before, but the data tab is something hopefully you're kind of familiar with if you've played with Qualtrics. And this shows us a breakdown of everything that has come in or out. You can add filters for the sentiments. So here I can see all these questions have the sentiment score and sentiment polarity. If I wanted to filter something, let's say question 5, sentiment score, if I want to add that into my results. Ooh. Okay, wait, maybe let's do sentiment polarity equal to, there's one of these things that comes up as a negative, positive, neutral, which is what I want to get to. Bear with me for just a second. I think I'm not going to find it. Okay, anyway, this is a way to play with filters and add in the sentiment scores and sentiment polarity to some of the data that you're pulling in. And from there, once you have some of these added, you can also view the sentiments in your reports section, which if you scroll down here, we've got all of the questions and kind of some of these graphs that Qualtrics creates automatically for you. And then it does something similar with the sentiments that have been assigned. So you can see for question 3, for the topics, more product variety, here's a graph kind of breaking down like how people felt about more product variety. We had 3 positive responses, 2 negative, 1 neutral. It's a similar depiction as those bubble widgets. I think that's kind of just like a smarter, more dynamic way to represent it. But just know that you can also access these in your report module. And when you do that, these 3 little buttons at the top let you export these files as images, which is just kind of another handy way to have the information available. Okay. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to stop talking and see if there's any questions.
We don't have any questions yet. Guys, feel free if you have questions about what Bridget has shown or you need to look at something again, you know, feel free to put it in the chat. But Bridget, this was really cool. I think that—
I'm glad. I was just kind of winging it. So thank you so much for bearing with me, kind of learning as I learn.
Yeah, no, and I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like from the first time I looked at TextIQ a few years ago to now, they've added so many more features, like to analyze it. It looks really robust. I mean, I'm really interested in trying this out for my own surveys.
Definitely. Yeah, a couple years ago when we did this, you could really just kind of map the topic. So you could say, you could see like how many people talked about garden versus how many people talked about wanting more flavors, but I think the sentiment score is all new. So kind of being able to look at the emotions of scores is really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that it's kind of, I'm curious to know how Qualtrics does it, to be honest. It's kind of creepy, but it's still really cool if you're doing a lot of these customer satisfaction surveys or any type of satisfaction surveys, to be honest. You know, I think this is a really interesting feature that, I mean, that you can see on the back end as the person who's kind of administrating the survey. Oh, Sue just said, great session. I'm looking forward to trying this. Thanks, Sue. I think that this could really add something to your analysis for sure.
Definitely. And reach out later so we can play with your survey about webinars.
Well, we have a couple minutes left. I don't see any questions coming in. Oh, wait, any tips? This is from Kevin in the library, Kevin Payne. Any tips for encouraging users to fill in free text boxes? Actually, that's a very good question. Any recommendations, Bridget?
Yeah, you know what? And I think that would come down to Qualtrics has a whole bunch of advice on how to ask a good question, which, you know, and I think encouraging people to fill that in comes down to, do they have the time? Do they have the motivation? And are you asking a question that they feel like is something that they want to answer and is going to add value? And sometimes that's a matter of like not asking an obvious question or a question that kind of has an obvious answer. Kevin, I don't have any hard and true tips, but I do think framing the question is important, and making it kind of something compelling that they want to give you information on is key.
And just touching on what Bridget said, we do have a guide that we call the 10 Commandments of Asking Good Questions in Qualtrics, because while these sessions focus on the more technical aspect, a lot of times we don't have the time to get into like, well, what makes a good question in a survey? And I think she is right that depending on how you phrase the question, their user might be more compelled to answer it. So we'll definitely send out that information along with this recording. I'm actually going to send part 1 and part 2 of our advanced Qualtrics sessions together because a lot of people went to both. And even if you didn't attend the first one, I think it's really useful information to have so that you can like try out new things for your surveys and get really cool data that can help you really better analyze the situation that you're measuring.
Here's something too I pulled up. In that Qualtrics library, there was a link at the bottom for an ebook. You can download 7 tips for writing great questions. It looks like you have to fill out some stuff and download the thing. But yeah, there are resources in that Qualtrics library to help you make good surveys.
Well, we're just about out of time. So Kevin says, thanks, very useful. Thank you. I'm going to start wrapping this up and just send out parts 1 and 2 out to everybody of today's session. But Bridget, thank you so much for showing us this feature. It's really cool. Appreciate you, you know, kind of showing us the ins and outs, and I'm looking forward to trying it out myself.
You're very welcome. Thanks everyone for joining today. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you again. Guys, have a great day. Thank you for joining today's session, and we will be sending this out. And keep an eye later this week. We're going to be sending out a message about our next Text Tuesday session on SciWheel. So we'll send out all those details if you want to register for that one too. Have a great day, guys.